Jana Nayagan is all set for a worldwide release on the 23rd of July, 8,000 screens in 30 countries. And yes, after a 6 month delay, I have with me Mohan Raman, who's a film historian, himself an actor as well. And I also have our Kannan, who's a political commentator, someone who's written the biography of MGR and Anadure as well. Thank you so much for joining us on Decoder. Uh, from what we can see in the trailer of the film, uh, what he is being called, the protagonist, in this case, Vijay being called, he is called Talapadi Vetrikondan. And the TVK acronym is not lost on anyone. There he's also saying, I'm coming, and he says, no intention to retreat at all. மக்களுக்கு நல்லது பண்றேன்னு வந்துட்டு கொள்ளை அடிக்கிறீங்க. So he's seen individual with a whipping what seemed like politicians tied up in the trailer. So all of that, of course, political messaging. First, you, Mr. Kannan, if this film had released before the elections happened, you think TVK may not have required these alliance partners? They may have made it on their own.
I've seen parts of the film, of course, the pirated version, so we couldn't see the entire film. I don't think the film does any justice to his film image, really. It's a bit of a disappointment. You'll learn and you will realize this when you go see the movie in the screens. I think it was just as well that it was not released. It was only the pirated copy that was released, and probably it was the handiwork of some of his political opponents to bring down his image. Thankfully, the movie didn't enhance his image or bring it down. He won hands down. It was an organic revolt, a revolution, and he created history. Now, there's only one parallel before. When MGR came to power in 1977, for about 2 weeks, the swearing in ceremony was postponed. Of course, as bête noire Karunanidhi said, it was because, on his advice of his astrologer, Vidwan Lakshman. That was partly true, but there was also another reason. The other reason was that his movie Meenava Nanban was yet to be completed. They'd only done about 3,000 to 4,000 feet of filming. And so when the director, and it had stopped midway because the director Sridhar had an accident and had hurt one of his eyes. And MGR himself was busy campaigning for the 1977 Legislative Assembly elections. But after he was the chief minister elect, he called director Sridhar and asked him, how much time would you need from me to do the film? And Sridhar said, I would just need 2 days. And MGR gave him the 2 full days to shoot that film. And the film came out on the 14th of August. He took charge on the 13th of June. So 2.5 months later, the film was released. It was a major success. It was a box office hit. It had beautiful, like all of MGR's movies, it had such melodious songs. Sridhar was an excellent director. So it was a great combination. This was in the flourish of MGR's victory that Meenava Nanban was shown. And it did complete justice to his image. 5 months later, on the 14th of January 1978, Madurai Meetu Sundara Pandian was launched. And the film failed. I'm positive this film, Jana Nayagan, will do very well because the Chief Minister Vijay is still in his honeymoon phase. It's going to do very well. That's my feeling.
So whatever the film may be like, it seems to have not really overwhelmed you. You're saying it's underwhelming, in fact. But yes, as you are saying, the film is likely to do very well because of the huge anticipation that's been built up and the honeymoon period itself. Mohan Raman, political messaging that MGR did at that time through perhaps many films as well, and Meenava Nanban also projecting him as a protector of fishermen, presumably. That was there was some symbolism. There was this typical Dravidian ideology, protecting the poor, respecting the woman, and fighting against injustice. The corrupt people get beaten up, or they get, they are dealt with in the right manner. Is the messaging from that time to this time? I mean, from what we see in Jana Nayagan as well, it seems to run on similar lines. But is there the modern version of reinventing cinema as a messenger for political campaign as well? Has it changed, or has it evolved?
I don't think there is a question of reinventing. It has always been so ever since the 1950s, when C.N. Annadurai and the late C.N. Annadurai and the late M. Karunanidhi, Dr. Kalinger, they were writing dialogues and screenplays and stories and whatnot. Since then, films have been used for carrying a political message or the ideology or the philosophy for which they stand, etc. One more parallel to Jananayagan, which my friend Mr. Kannan, who's the authority on the subject, hasn't mentioned, is how the then government, when MGR left the party, tried to did its best to scuttle Ulagam Sutrum Valiban, the shoot, the processing, and even the release. Despite that, it was released and became a box office hit. So the government at that of the day did its utmost to prevent Mr. MG Ramachandran releasing Ulagam Sutram Valiban as soon as he started his party. But well, much water has flowed under the river. From Ulagam Sutram Valiban, we have now come to Jananayagan.
So similar political games in many senses are being played, it does appear. But I would like both of you to, in fact, comment first, Mr. Kannan. What happened in MGR's time, and how did he use cinema? And is there any big difference in the way? I mean, we are told that even Vijay has been planning for this for a long time, and the messaging, at least in the recent past, has suggested that he wanted to have a bigger image and role than what was being offered to him in the films itself. Meaning, in real life, he wanted a bigger role than that. Give us a comparison. Of course, you were telling us that while you don't think much of an impact would have happened if the film had been released earlier. Of course, they have put it in the title itself, saying that it is Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Vijay as Jana Nayagan in this case, and many other songs they say they have added and footage they have added. But what is the messaging change from those years to now?
The difference between MGR and our current chief minister is, I think, from 1954, MGR, or even prior to that, this is MGR's own admission from 1954, he had sculpted his image. He had deliberately choreographed a career track, and then he knew what he was doing, and he was always the do-gooder. He was always the protector of the distressed and the women folk, etc., etc. Women fell in love with him, not the other way around. And he was such a handsome man. And so, as Jayalalitha once remarked, who would not love MGR? So it was a completely different period. And then he had a long career streak. So from 1953, when he officially was part of the DMK, till 1972, for 20 years, he had a very deliberate political career, a career where he was a very generous man, he was a very giving man, but he was also, most of this giving was also calibrated and very well advertised so that people knew who he was. So he had done a lot of things without others knowing. But most of these things were also tuned to see that his fans were attached to him, etc. So most of these films from 1954 onwards, essentially the 1958 Nadodi Mannan was actually the DMK manifesto in the offing. So it spoke of a leftist socialist creed of the left of center party, the DMK, his DMK. It was when his MGR pictures emblem showed a man and a woman in DMK clothes and DMK flag. So all this, but and then from then onwards, his songs mentioned Annadurai, his leader. Uh, there was, very clear propaganda in, using aphorisms, using innuendos, using metonyms, and so on and so forth, double entendres, and so on. From 1972, when he broke off from the DMK, the propaganda was intense. நேற்று என்று நாளை, 1974, was the most intense anti-DMK film that was ever made. So it was clearly a propaganda film, Nature and Denari. So most of these films from 1972 to 1977 were destined, were deliberately created in order to propel him to the number one seat in the state, and he achieved that. So this was a man with a sense of public consciousness from his very early modest beginnings when he was nobody. This is what his colleagues write about. He had this nature of giving, innate nature of giving. So this was a man who always asked people, "Have you eaten? What is it that I can do for you?" That's all. So therefore, this man it was impossible to bring him down. And every time he appeared to be vulnerable, Providence intervened. The screen villain Radha shot him once and made him bigger than life. And then the second time, he was not well. And then therefore, he got a fresh lease of life in 1984, a political life, I mean. So this was I'm not so sure that our current chief minister had clearly thought through this. At least if he had, it must have been in the last 10, 15 years. Some of his films speak about it, but he hadn't chosen his roles very carefully. And times have changed. You don't have to do all that, as we can currently see. I mean, so we have seen the current chief minister, having a drink in a movie or smoking a cigarette. You will never see such things with MGR. So it's a very different period. This is a very different period. Those are very two different individuals. But I think there is something that you and I, or all of us, cannot really put our hands on. They know how to connect with people, or they somehow connect with people, and only this secret, or this uh, I mean, what connects them is only known to them and the people. With MGR, I perhaps could explain. I mean, he was a dashing figure. He oozed out of, charisma oozed out of him. This is, as he himself says, the current chief minister says, "I'm your younger brother. I'm your older brother. I'm your brother-in-law. I'm your son." He's our next door neighbor. That is how he comes across. So he has his own charm, the current chief minister, and he somehow connects with people. And then there's so much expectations on this man, on this young 51-year head. And we hope that he will do well.
An MGR, almost sacred kind of a fanatical loyalty that people had, and that lasted so many years. Is it in this age of social media, and when icons are made and destroyed? TVK is supposed to have a very strong social media team. Is it going to be very difficult for Vijay to sustain it as well, Mr. Mohan Raman, in today's age and time?
No, today it's actually easier. I mean, you have people who call themselves influencers, and they are influencing you on what is the best skin treatment, or what is the best they are not cosmetologists. They are influencing you on what food you must eat, and they are not trained dietitians, but they are influencers and they are paid. So today, to grab the people and hold them is probably easier. I'm going to go back to Mr. Kannan's comments to add a few personal narratives. MGR frequently used to come home for breakfast to sit and discuss with my dad on his legal issues and all that. And he was staying literally next door, actually one door away. There was one house in between our house and MGR's house. So he will
The
send
house
word the
belonged
night
to his
before saying,
granddad.
"I'm coming for breakfast," which means we have to get everything. Yeah, that also belonged to my granddad. So when he lands up, he'll come in from one door away, he'll still come in his car because he has to go from here to the Satya Studios or whatever it is. The moment they see that car parked, crowds will gather outside the house. The local maids, the rickshawalas, the milk vendor, the this, that, the whole crowd. And by the time the breakfast is over and his talk with dad is over, and as he comes out, there will be at least about two, 500, 300 people gathered outside the house shouting, Makkal Tilagam Varga. He was not even Purachi தலைவர் then. He was Makkal Tilagam. Makkal Tilagam Varga, Makkal MGR Varga, MGR Varga, etc. So I have seen this with my own eyes. He'll get into the car, he'll drive out, then suddenly his door will open and he will stand there with his hand on the door and another hand on the top of the car and wave to everybody. So people get a good look at him, not through the window. He'll give them darshan, proper darshan. Having given it, if he spots an old lady there, Paikulam, he will immediately put his hand inside, come out, and there will be a bunch of currency notes, and he'll hold it in such a way that you can see the note sticking out, and you can clearly make out it's a 100 rupee note. And whether it's one note folded twice, thrice, we don't know, or many notes, but MGR will do that, and he will wave to the crowd as if he's waving. Actually, what he's doing is indicating, look at the cash. And he'll get down, rush towards that old lady. He won't even give it in her hand. He'll take that talapu of the sari, put it in, give her a hug, and say, Amma, nalla irkingla amma, paathukanga amma, vadam paathukanga, etc. That's it. In that 200-300 rupees investment, 500 votes assured. So he was saying, Mr. Kannan was mentioning that MGR cultivated his image. I was just talking about the planning and the sheer cultivation. You mentioned even his donations, what he did, charity. It was well known. But lot of MGR's charity has gone unpublished. I mean, unpublicized. Sorry, unpublicized. Like what he did for it.
There is no social media or cell phones at that time, and yet whatever was captured is what we are hearing about.
All I'm going to say is Mr. Vijay probably decided in the last 4-5 years. That is when the messaging changed. Until then, he was just a popular hero. MGR, it was clear. For instance, Anbeva is way back in 1963-64, if I'm right, Mr. Kannan. 63-64. In that song will be there. Udaya Suriyan in Parvayile. Ulagam Vidithu. Look at that. If the world sees Udaya Suryan, which is the symbol of the DMK, Ulagam Vidithu Kondum, the world will awaken. Metaphorically, he's right. Metaphorically, he's right. Scientifically, he's right. Only when the sun comes up, earth light up. So he had not just one. He quoted Anna Gandhi, Sonnavari. He has used the song, the scenes, everything to promote himself and then the DMK. The difference between Mr. Vijay and MGR was when MGR started in 53-54, the DMK backed him. Party members backed him, backed his films. Slowly they became more of a fan and less of a DMK man. So over a period of time, if the man was 80% DMK, 20% MGR, over a period of time he became 20% DMK, 80% MGR. So when MGR decided to split, that fan base just walked out with him. He was a different phenomenon. It is as bad as us comparing Don Bradman, Sunil Gavaskar, Sachin Tendulkar, and probably this Vaibhav Suryavanshi. It's as bad. Bradman was the greatest in his time. Sunil was the greatest in his time. So was Sachin. So it's unfair to compare Vijay with MGR. Just to say that they lived in different times, the social ethos was different, communication strategies were different. Today there are umpteen alternates to films people watch. We ourselves are not going on screen, we are going on a small screen. Most people are going to probably see this interview on a telephone. So things have changed, and I'm happy for Mr. Vijay that he has found success. I could clearly see that his intentions were very, very good, honorable, and pure. That I could see. He was not in it to grab or seek revenge on A or B or make money. That I could see. Will the political system, will the bureaucracy allow him to do so is a matter we have to see. As they say, picture abhi baki hai.
We'll discuss that also in a while. Mr. Kannan, come in on the many anecdotes that Mohan Raman came up with, and yeah.
No, I'm very jealous of him actually, because he has a lineage and heritage that is beyond comparison. Um, MGR in 1957, if I'm right, is his movie Chakravarti Thirumagan. The name of the lead star is Udaya Suryan. His name in the movie is Udaya Suryan. So 1957, that was the first election that the DMK fought. So uh, he, from 1954, he stopped. It was a very, 1954 was the only time when he had paired with Nadigar Tilakam Sivaji Ganesan, his rival in the Tamil tinsel world. So they got together to do this movie Gundu Kili, and then there MGR would be seen smoking a cigarette. And it was after a great deal of persuasion that he really agreed to even hold the cigarette. But after 54, he stopped doing even that. So this was a very careful man whose every movement was choreographed, whose every movement was in sync. Actor Satyaraj once mentioned an incident. Vedam Pudidu was his film, and the premiere show, they'd invited the Chief Minister, MGR, to watch it, and MGR was sitting next to him. And every time the lights came on in the hall, Satyaraj noticed MGR doing something strange. He had crossed his legs when the lights were off, and the moment the lights were on, he brought his legs back, and both his legs were onto the feet. He didn't want anybody to see him crossing his legs. This was such an extremely diligent, careful, thoughtful individual. So he's absolutely right about Vijay. They are of a different period or a different metal. Their successes cannot beyond a point be compared. They both organic successes. Half of their successes, both of them are like
Mm.
Vali, the Ramayan Vali, because half their strength comes from their enemies. So when so half the votes for the current
And
chief
both had the
minister.
same enemy, the DMK. Both had the same enemy, the DMK.
So so they remain Valis. That way, both of them are to be compared. And then we are, I mean, we were actually fortunate to have lived through both these times. And that's what I think.
The distinction between real and real in the case of an MGR is not very much so, at least for public consumption. In the case of Vijay, we do know that he has a private life, and then there's the real man is one thing, and the real man is one thing. Is today's voter or the voters in MGR's period, are they able to make that distinction between a real person and a real person, or are the lines always blurred?
No, I think it's very difficult to answer this question because I'm pretty much nonplussed about the Tamil psyche and Tamil culture, because at one level we celebrate Kannagi and then we celebrate Sita and all this. But it was only in the United States when Gary Hart, a presidential candidate, took off on a boat called Monkey Business with his assistant, with whom he had an affair. He couldn't run any further. Here, Chief Minister MGR was watching in Delhi one of these games. I forget what games they were, Commonwealth or Asiad, with Jayalalitha on one side and his official wife, Janaki Ramachandran, on the other. People tolerated it. People said, that's fine, it didn't matter. Even here in this election, when people made a big deal about the divorce proceedings of the current chief minister, some thought that this would really wreck his image. I didn't think so. I thought Tamils are very, very benevolent when it comes to when they love somebody, they simply love this man to a fault. In fact, with all his or her faults. So So I think I'm not very sure that there is a distinction between that there is an expectation in public life for somebody to, be a model family man individual. I think uh, I'm very confused. I don't know. Maybe Mohan can throw some light on this.
Again, I think we go back in history. Dr. Kalangir himself called the when he was accused, he said, "No, no, she's not my wife. She is my daughter's mother." In Mahal Kanimuniyin Tainar. So they kind of use language to get around all this. And I'm also, as he says, this concept of Kannagi and Sita being worshipped here, but at the same time, you know, polygamy or bigamy or whatever you want to call it, not being viewed with a bad eye. I think there is this dichotomy. The dichotomy is aptly expressed if you go outside some of the temples where inside you will find the Srirangam Kovil. You enter, but outside you will find a Periyar statue which says Kadavale number one Muttal. Right, bang outside. Almost you can say on temple land. Will it impact Mr. Vijay's image? I don't think so, because it is not that they did not know. In fact, even Mr. MG Ramachandran's marriage to VN Janaki is itself was questioned in those days, because VN Janaki had a husband.
When I was traveling across Tamil Nadu, I found people actually justifying this, saying that it is wrong to target Vijay on the grounds of what was happening in his personal life. And people were saying, இதெல்லாம் நடக்கும். அது வந்து you cannot question it and you cannot vilify somebody because of what is happening in their personal life.
Another anecdote, something that one of the former ministers who is still alive and a very close associate of the late MGR told me that he told MGR that people consider Jayalalitha his wife, not Janaki Ramachandran. And this was when MGR was alive. And lo and behold, that is what happened. People saw Jayalalitha as his successor to his mantle, political heir. They were, they didn't bother too much about a legal wedlock, Janaki Ramachandran having been such a devoted wife. No, it didn't matter at all. So this is, as Mohan said, it's a dichotomy that it's very difficult for us to really fathom, but it seems to exist. But to reach there, you need to be it's not just an ordinary leader. You need to be a colossus. MGR was a colossus. Karunanidhi was a colossus. If this chief minister plays his cards well, he is likely to become a colossus.
You need to be in MGR's words. You need to be idayakani. You need to be the fruit of the heart. People's heart. You must be the fruit. He did a movie called Idayakani also. So that is why in those days the title leading on Purachi தலைவர் etc. will say Idaya Deivam. Idaya Deivam Purachi தலைவர். Idaya Deivam means what? The God in my residing in my heart. So that is the level of passion that he got from the people. I have a feeling the current chief minister is going on that right track. All he has to do is keep up a bit of his promises here and there, and all he has to do is keep up a few of his promises, and then I think he'll be unstoppable. He'll be unstoppable until some similar force comes. We don't know.
So his superstar status, something that perhaps has, of course, helped both these men, and they have cultivated, like you said, MGR has very carefully cultivated it. Is that superstar status also something that is going to cut him off from people to get direct feedback? There's usually a coterie that gets formed for a chief minister like Vijay. That is being spoken about as something that he must uh, caution against.
See, I personally feel that MGR Karunanidhi, both of them, MGR and Karunanidhi, both of them, despite being huge colossus, as he mentioned, retained a certain level of connect with the people directly. probably because they used to attend at least 2 3 weddings every day, probably because Kalaignar used to go for his walks in the morning where party men will be there, and he'll just say, go in Sami va inga, and he'll walk with him one lap and say, "Enna energy, what's happening in Vellore, what's happening here." Govind Sami will tell his piece. Next morning, Govind Sami's opposition from Vellore, Kupsami, will come. He'll say, "Hey Kupsami, come here, what's happening?" So he'll get both sides of the picture. MGR constantly did that. MGR was totally accessible to the police, especially his DGPs, his ministers, his MLAs. All they had to do was leave word that this thing. He was in touch, if not and directly with the people. Also, whenever he managed to get into the political campaigning mode, he retained that link with the people, which is all important, which Jayalalitha couldn't because she was a lady, and so she made it her style, and it became a uh, oh, lady, we can't go there. It worked for her, but not in today's age. Not in today's age of WhatsApp and whatever else you have it, all these internet tools, I mean social media tools. Mr. Vijay, the chief minister, has to be in connect with the people. He has to have his ear to the ground so that he can smell danger a mile away, and danger is always lurking. For anyone in power, danger is lurking. So he has to play his cards correctly. But if he plays his cards correctly, he's got a long innings like Sachin. He can carry on playing for 20, 25 years. If he doesn't, I don't know.
Kannan.
One of the reasons why the last government was sent home, I actually knew the former chief minister rather well until 2019. Once they won parliamentary elections in 2019, they had a sizable number of seats. Uh, my access to the former chief minister, he was not a chief minister. He was to become chief minister in 2021. Slowly dwindled. And then after he became chief minister in those 5 years, I couldn't see him even once. So it's not about being a superstar. It's about being what really, to guard yourself against this coterie that you and Mohan spoke about. And I'm afraid that the current chief minister already, there is talk about some of his close advisors, some people that he had appointed to positions of authority and power, hold the are the gatekeepers. And I hope that this information is incorrect, or if it is correct, that this will over a period of time change, and then that he'll become more accessible, and will not go to this ivory tower that most of these people do. uh, Annadurai, when he was chief minister, he actually mentioned this on his trip to the US. He said, every day I pray. He didn't say I pray to God. He was a bit of an agnostic. So he said, every day I pray that this power doesn't get into my head, because it can be so intoxicating. A chief minister of a particular state, especially a state like Tamil Nadu, is almost like, you're God on earth. The way these officials dance around you, the 500 civil servants, IAS officials, the hundreds of IPS officials, they dance around you. And at the moment you lose office, they drop you like a hot potato. So anyone who has seen this time and again would be a sthita pragnyan, as you say in Sanskrit, somebody who is, so solid. Yeah, somebody who is like a rock. Nothing bears on him, you see. So I think the chief minister should talk sometimes. He currently uses his silence as a weapon. It is a weapon, but you can't overuse it. So he has to come out. There's so much expectation. He has to speak his mind. He has to become less filmy. He has to do this transition from the film world into this real political arena. He has to bloom. He has to blossom into a full-fledged political leader. He's in a transitional mode, so his speeches are still very filmy. So this is my hope and wish.
My hope and wish to Mr. Vijay is be careful, because you said you're going to stop corruption. People down the line, the bureaucracy, the lower level officials, all of them have been used to so much extra income in their life. Suddenly, if the top stops taking, this becomes a very disgruntled lot, and they will do anything to sabotage you. So be aware. For that, you need to stay in touch with the people, and I wish him all the very best in this
In
battle.
fact, in a very cinematic manner is what Vijay, like you said, makes very cinematic speeches. You said, but that does have so much of currency and resonance with the people when he comes out and says, if someone asks you for a bribe, don't pay it. I am with you. He's not pointing to institutions or the machinery to take care of it. He's saying, I am with you, and tell them that Vijay Anna is with you, or Vijay is. He's using those very personalized symbols to say that I am the person who is giving you that kind of a governance. So while he does that, Mohan Ram spoke about the dangers of something like that. Uh, but people would still say, at least in the when you meet common people, you spoke about people down the line in bureaucracy. It's the politicians and the others who are actually the big masters of big ticket corruption, and there that is where perhaps the big resistance is going to come for Vijay.
I think people will tolerate big ticket corruption. What people do not want to happen is, dealing with corruption on a daily basis, from the man who comes to fix your electricity, from the man who comes to collect your garbage, to any governmental office that you go into. There's no way that you can get anything done without any uh, without greasing somebody's palms. If that can be done away with, because it's become part of our DNA today, especially in Tamil Nadu, every civil servant, every municipal councillor, every corporation councillor, every small, and anybody who's in the slightest, smallest office, there is no shame in taking money. It's become acceptable. We are in
Normalized.
It's become normalized, etc. So I don't think people in other Asian countries like Korea and Japan, there is big ticket corruption at the highest level. I mean, the former Korean prime minister is serving a prison term. I don't think people will really bother so much, because between 1980 and 1984, MGR's government, if you look into it, this was when the distilleries just sprouted. There were about two or three distilleries until then. Mohan Meakin had today they're the biggest suppliers to our government, dispensing liquor. And I wouldn't consider the 1980-84 MGR tenure as a very clean administration, but most of the good work was done then. Public-private partnership in education, in professional institutions, all this was done then. And on a daily basis, there were so many welfare schemes that kept everybody happy. So things have changed completely from, I mean, and then today everybody knows what happens when you go to register a small plot of land, or so on. There's a parallel economy in every one of these states in India. So he should, shut off the tap, the spigot there, so that a common man can enter with a sense of proprietary ownership into a governmental office. It's the other way around. We go, fearing to enter. Even Mohan and I would fear entering a government office. It is so inhospitable, unfriendly, and so that is what he needs to work on, and I think that is where his focus is, because that's what he says. When somebody asks you for a bribe, tell them that my brother runs this state. So big ticket, it's going to take some time, because I'll tell you the honest truth. What will happen is TVK, as it gets formalized into a party, as it tries to ape other parties to stay in this business, it is going to fall into the same rut at a different level. So some of this is unavoidable. I would even grant them that. Okay, how do you bring in industries, etc.? So you compromise, you have to. This election, they won without spending a single rupee. I'm not so sure that they can win all the elections that way. So, so the sheen
No
will
hope
not.
that this can actually become a new template for the rest of the country?
I hope
No
so.
hope at all.
I really hope so. I really hope so. I hope all the 330 million Hindu deities will make it happen.
Why restrict them to Hindu deities, however?
I'd like to add to what Mr. Kannan says is, for this to happen, I think Mr. Vijay needs to have what is called a visiting hour, or 1 or 2 hours in a day, or 1 2 hours every alternate day, where the
Darbar.
public can just go in, meet him, and give their grievance, not being vetted by all the people who will then say that only those who go in and say, "Sir, beautiful, sir, everything is wonderful, sir, you have done everything, sir." So not the people who have just praise, but somebody who really goes and says, "My street is badly off, we are not getting water in our street, or the local MLC is creating problems," whatever it be. If he can, you know give grant time to people without being filtered by the bureaucracy around him, it will do him a tremendous amount of good.
Yeah, so from the adulation and from being seated on that throne of superstar status, he perhaps needs to become that chief minister who is accessible and being able to listen to what's really happening on the ground. Final word on Jana Nayagan. I know there's huge rush to book it. Are you both going to be watching Jana Nayagan? Kannan first.
I wouldn't know, but the first few days it's going to be all mayhem, nothing you will be able to follow. So I'll wait for a couple of days, and then if I'm under pressure from my wife to go, because she loves this new avatar of Vijay a lot. So if I'm under pressure, then I'll go watch it, or I'll wait for it to come on OTT and watch it in peace.
The chief minister has sleeper cells in every Tamil household.
Yes, including
Absolutely.
mine. In her case, she became a fan after he became chief minister, because she found it a breath of fresh air. A nice, well turned out person who's not spouting every minute of the day some rhetoric. He's just keeping quiet and watching like this. She says, "Look at the man. He's just watching." No, these things which normally would have been looked at as a disadvantage, in his case, are being looked at as an advantage. Aping the West or being silent, etc., people are actually saying, "Yeah, what's wrong? Yeah, we need that. We need CEO of the state. We don't want politicians. We want a CEO." And here he is as a CEO. So he's dressed as a CEO. Well, look at that.
Kannan, you said just as well that the film didn't release before the elections. Now, after the elections, will it have an impact on his image and how people are going to? He's already in his honeymoon status, but what more can the film do for him?
I don't think it can do anything more. It'll just concretize what he has. It'll cement his image. The his fans are going to just celebrate, and they're going to go bonkers. I will see the movie at the earliest opportunity in a just for the experience of watching it with his fans.
Thank you so much. Delightful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on Decoder and sharing all those wonderful stories. Thank you.